Brian Tracy says, excellence is not a destination, it is a continuous journey that never ends. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and Udupi ICA has started a new journey of live webinar due to this COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI, a very good evening and a warm welcome to all my members and students for this first ever webinar from Udupi ICA on e-assessment and income tax. It's a great privilege for me to have an eminent speaker and Secretary of SIRC of ICI, Dr. C. Abhishek Murali, with us to enlighten on today's topic. Welcome you, Abhishek. For reducing the face-to-face interactions between the taxpayer and taxman, the government has introduced this scheme, e-assessment. We have also with us the chief guest for today's webinar, CA Ganesh B. Kanchan, the past chairman of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI. I welcome you, sir. I have also with me CA Lokesh Shetty, Secretary of Udupi branch. I welcome you, sir. On behalf of the Udupi branch, I take this opportunity to thank Abhishek and CA Ganesh P. Kanchan for accepting our invitations and joining with us for this webinar. For the information of the members, this webinar is an approved CPE for which members will get 2 hours unstructured CPE credit. You can post your questions on chat box, which will be answered after the session. I hope you all will enjoy this webinar. Dear friends, we have great challenges and great opportunities. And with your help, we will meet them and make this year best year in our history. Stay positive. Thank you. Now it's time to introduce our resource person, Dr. C. Abhishek Murali. Abhishek Murali is a practicing chartered accountant and the youngest elected secretary of the SIRC of ICA for the term 2020-21. He is an All India first rank holder in CMA strategy examinations and All India 17th rank in CMA final examinations. He also secured All India 5th rank in the international taxation examinations conducted by CIOT. He is an expert in direct taxations, indirect taxations, litigations, valuations, due diligence, and mergers and acquisitions. After qualifying chartered accountant, he went on to work with KPMG in transaction advisory, mergers and acquisitions. He has also completed his graduations and masters in commerce from Madras University, DISA from ICAI, CISA from ISACA USA, and CMA from CIMA London. Dr. C. Abhishek Murali has also completed his advanced diploma in international taxations with CIOT London and has obtained his certification in international tax law and transfer pricing from Leiden University. He also qualified Independent Directors Databank Online Proficiency Test. Dr. C. Abhishek Murali has been nominated to Corporate Laws and Corporate Governance Committee, Professional Development Committee, Research Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, New Delhi. He has been nominated as the chairman of various committees constituted by SIRC of ICI. Dr. C. Abhishek Murali has authored 5 books of professional interest. He has addressed conference, seminars, and workshops organized by corporate forums, professional bodies on varied topics. With this, I introduce before you CA Dr. Abhishek Murali. Over to you, Abhishek Murali.
Thank you so much for a very wonderful introduction, CA Pradeep Jogi, the chairman of Udupi branch. I also give my due regards to CA Ganesh B. Kanchan sir and CA Lokesh Shetty and the other MC members of Udupi branch, and of course, all the viewers who are joining in for today's program. Udupi branch holds a very special place in my heart. I'm very honored for Pradeep to invite me as the inaugural speaker for this webinar sessions that they are starting for the Udupi branch. And it's interesting to note that my father, CAV Murali, was the chairman, I think, at the time when Udupi branch was launched. So I feel honored to again be back in the role as a secretary for the launching of the YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll jump into the topic today. Let me just share my screen so that you can view the PPT. So today's topic is going to be on e-assessment proceedings under the Income Tax Act. And in the course of my presentation, I'll also touch upon the e-appeal, which has now been announced by the Honorable Finance Minister in this recent Finance Act. The e-appeal and e-penalty was announced in the recent Finance Act. E-assessment has been there for more than a year now, but it is coming into effect, or rather it has come into effect from 1st of April 2020. So what is e-assessment proceedings? How is it going to impact how you and I are doing our income tax assessments? What are the changes and what is the background? How is it going to work? If we need to handle e-assessment, we need to know how it works. So let us see what is the origin of this e-assessment. Ever since the current government have taken charge in way back in 2014, one of the key initiatives that they have been very consciously implementing across all spheres, not only income tax, is transparency and digitization. Needless to say, any return that we have been filing or response to our returns, all of this reissuing of refunds, everything has been computerized. So it was only a matter of time before assessment was also computerized. But we saw the sudden shoot of pace when this government gave more direction towards digitization of various initiatives here. So, Honorable Finance Minister in the July 2019 budget, after following the interim budget, when they prepared the final budget for that year, they announced that there will be e-assessment. Now, in the course of the announcement itself, during the budget session, the Honorable Finance Minister said we want to increase the transparency and reduce undesirable practices. Now, what is this e-assessment? While earlier, you and I used to go and appear face to face before the assessing officer. For example, I have an assessee who is based in Udupi, or I have an assessee based in Chennai. Then, naturally, my jurisdictional assessing officer will be based out of Chennai, out of the various assessing officers over there. So they will send me a notice. I will go appear, present the facts of the case with my power of attorney. I will give all the documents to submit in response to whatever they are asking. And over the course of our discussions or the various hearings, there will be finality achieved. And they will give me an assessment order either in my favor or against me. Now, this later evolved into something called the email assessment. It was called the email assessment. What I initially said, that is called a manual assessment. Then email assessment. What is email assessment? This is something we have all been familiar with. We have been doing an email assessment for the last, let's say, around 1.5 years. In email assessment, when you go to that e-proceeding tab, when you log in to your income tax login, and you go, there will be one tab on the top saying e-proceedings, view any e-proceedings. And if you select that, you will have an option to see what and all proceedings are going on for whatever assessment years. Here you will be given an option. You will be given a very simple option. Do you want to select a manual assessment? You just have to click yes or no, and then that entire email assessment is gone. Even if you choose to continue with an email assessment, what is interesting to note, it is the same jurisdictional assessing officer who was assessing your income in the manual assessment. So there was no change. The same officer for my assessee in Udupi, based out of Udupi, is going to be there. Same assessing officer for Chennai assessee, based out of Chennai, will be doing the email assessment. So there was no change. You just had an option of submitting the data online, submitting your responses online, and they will also respond online. If you want, you can submit online and then again go meet the assessing officer face to face. But this did not achieve the objectives of the government, because what did they want to do? They want a e-assessment. That means it is going to be a jurisdiction free assessment and a completely faceless assessment. So, what does that mean? My assessee in Chennai or the earlier assessee in Udupi will now be assessed by an assessing officer in Bihar, in Jharkhand, in UP, in Delhi. You don't know. You have no idea who is assessing you, and all you will be receiving is a communication from an assessment center. So, therefore, the entire face to face interaction between the assessee or an authorized representative and the income tax authority is completely cut off. The feeling was that this intermediary was creating some undesirable practices. Yes, you and I will agree that this is not everybody. Similarly, on the income tax, also, there is a feeling that you cannot paint everybody as corrupt. There are a small set of people who may be doing such practices, be it as professionals or be it on the income tax side or be it as a tax practitioner, however you want to see it. But unfortunately, it has colored the entire gamut of people in the wrong color. But having said that, negatives aside, e assessment is definitely a step in the positive direction. Let us go forward and understand what is this e assessment, how it is going to work, and what are the pros and what are the cons. There are some excellent benefits, but there are also some challenges that come with it that you and I need to be prepared to handle. Under the e assessment, the first thing that we have to know is how will you receive a communication. Now, as I go on through the presentation, you will understand the e assessment process. But the critical points that I want you to note is that the very scheme has been designed such that the communication will be sent either by email or a mobile application or by SMS also. So you may have an income tax app that you'll have to download to get updates about your income tax. Email is already being done. So please request you all to ask the client to update the latest email ID that they are having. And the last one, it says messages to taxpayer. That is what the act says. But we have to step back and understand what does message mean. Does it only mean SMS? Because currently everybody is getting SMS from the income tax promptly. But messages, if you go to the income Information Technology Act of the Indian Constitution, you will find that the Information Technology Act very clearly states that messages will include WhatsApp messages also. So the questions are now being raised. If my assessing officer sends a WhatsApp message, does that constitute that I have received my notice? Yes. Now, this is a question we'll know only when we are dealing with the provisions. So, let us now move on to the provisions of e assessment. There is only one new critical section that has been introduced as far as e assessment, which is called 143.3a. It does not change anything that we have been doing in terms of assessment procedures or proceedings, except it is carving out a section empowering e assessment. I'm not going to go into line by line detail of this definition, but I've highlighted and underlined a few critical points in this. And this is going to be the very crux and the foundation of e assessment for the income tax authorities. The first point, as I said, eliminating interface between the AO and the assessee in the course of proceedings to the extent technologically feasible. So, technology is a very basic element of this scheme. Optimizing utilization of resources through economies of scale and functional specialization. This is a very interesting addition. They are introduced something called functional specialization. I'll touch upon this in the course of the presentation, but remember that. And the last one, introducing a team-based assessment with dynamic jurisdiction. We have already discussed a dynamic jurisdiction, but what is this team-based assessment? Let us again understand as we proceed with the program. You see, the structure of your e assessment is very simple. You have a national e assessment center and then you have a regional e assessment centers. Now, there are going to be two critical assessment centers, but in the both of them, you will find that the national e assessment center, that is the all powerful center. Why? I will tell you why. There are going to be four new units that will be created under the scheme of e assessment. there will be 4 new units that are going to be established under the e-assessment scheme. It is called a verification unit, a technical unit, a review unit, and an assessment unit. Now, this regional e-assessment center, as I said, while the national e-assessment center sits in Delhi, the regional e-assessment center will be across 8 cities in India. The 4 metros, followed by Ahmedabad, Pune, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. These are going to be 8 regional e-assessment centers. So there will be something called the assessment units. Let us understand what these are. What are the purposes of these units? What are they going to do? How does this tie up with the introduction that I gave? That that definition where I highlighted a few things and I've kept it as you can see on the screen. How do these 4 units tie up into the highlighted points? The functions of these units is very important to understand. The first unit and the most important one, apart from the National E-Assessment Center, is called the Assessment Unit. Now, the Assessment Unit is going to be the unit that identifies the issues to be raised. They will seek more information if they want more information after you submit, like in your normal scrutiny assessment. The assessing officer will send you a notice. He will ask you for a checklist, maybe 10 or 12 items or 30, 40 items. You will produce those 30, 40 items. Then what will he do? He will scrutinize those 30, 40 items. He will seek further information. Okay, you have purchased this land. You seem to have claimed depreciation. Can you please share the details if there is any building on that land? Bring me the land documents. Bring me the purchase documents. Bring me your fixed asset register. So all of this will come in the process. So you can seek more information. The assessment unit will seek more information. But finally, they will also prepare a draft assessment order. They will prepare a draft assessment order. Now, what does the verification unit do? If you remember, 4 units are there: assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit, and a review unit. The verification unit will conduct inquiries, examine the books of accounts, and record statements through video. So what does this mean? I said it is a faceless assessment, if you remember. That is, the assessee will have no interaction with that assessing officer who is passing the order. But here, I am saying they can record statements through video conference. I am saying they can call people to cross-examine. If they want to, they can summon the assessee and also examine him on oath. So they can all do that in verification unit. So does that mean the entire e-assessment faceless, that name faceless, goes to waste? I will explain in the next slide. Then you have something called a technical unit. A technical unit is something which is a master stroke in terms of the income tax side. What does this mean? They'll provide technical assistance, advice, and specified knowledge that they will share to the assessing officer. Now, earlier, when you and I went for a hearing, if the assessing officer's knowledge was limited on maybe a certain aspect, then the assessment order will also be limited, or he will seek further information from you, or maybe his friends, assessing officers, next door assessing officer, maybe his joint commissioner, or whoever is the superior. But suppose you take a complex scenario like a transfer pricing issues, or you take capital gains, the complex issues, or joint development agreement. All of these have so many multiple decisions, so many complex issues that maybe all the assessing officers, you cannot expect them to know everything. Some assessing officers, they may be experts in capital gains. Some of them may be experts in other sources. Some of them are very, very well equipped in dealing the PGBP issues. Some of them might be in charitable organizations. So you know that some people are experts in one field, but because of the transfers or because of the nature of their work, they end up doing other areas also. So that knowledge, which or the lack of knowledge or the lack of experience, whatever you want to call it, that used to reflect in the assessment order sometimes. By establishing a technical unit, what the income tax has done is they have suddenly empowered They have empowered the assessing officer. If I don't know transfer pricing, I have to write a letter to this technical unit. I just need to get their feedback whether what I am telling is correct. Have I understood it correctly? If not, what is wrong with it? Give me your inputs. Is this assessee, whatever is he stating, is he correct? Or should we ask for more information? Or is he lying? All this will come out through the technical unit's feedback. And finally, you have something called a review unit. Now, all I want you to do here is see this meaning. It says review the draft order. What does that mean? I'll give you an example of a scenario that I handled. Normally, I specialize in appeals and I appear across the southern region and, of course, sometimes in Delhi and Bombay also. And what you will find in this is that generally people who appear regularly in appeals, how they start out their argument, be it at the CIT appeals level or the ITAT, or if you take lawyers when they go to the High Court or Supreme Court also, they always start off their arguments not on the merits. They will first start off on the legal points. They will say, the assessing officer failed to give me an opportunity. The assessing officer has not given a speaking order. The assessing officer has failed to comply with the terms of section 148. He should not have issued that notice beyond the 4 years, but he has issued it. So these are all called technical points or legal points. Even though the merit of the case may be in favor of the department, when they fail on a technical point, you straight away win the case on simply technical points. You don't even have to go and discuss whether the capital gains is correct, whether you have falsified anything, nothing. Simply on the legal points, cases were won. Let me give you the example where I recently handled this case. There was a 263 order issued by the principal commissioner directing that further additions should be made for the assessee. So he remanded the matter back. He sent the case back to the file of the assessing officer, directing a fresh assessment to be done. The assessing officer, what he did when drafting his assessment order, very simple. He said, these are the two new additions that I am making. Therefore, in summary, the income filed in the return of income by the assessee plus additions as per the old assessment order X amount, then additions as per the new assessment order Y amount. Total is the taxable income and tax on that, and he raised the demand. It went to CIT appeals. For whatever reason, the CIT appeals has confirmed it. And then the auditor referred the case to us and we appeared in the ITAT. For me, I found this case to be very simple. On the fact that, and the ITAT also agreed with me, and I won the case, and this was a huge amount. The mistake that happened here is that the learned assessing officer, when he passed that order giving effect to 263, he said additions as per old order, whatever 10 additions, he just put the amount plus whatever two new additions. He did not go into detail on what were the old additions in that old order. What did the 263 order state? It directed a fresh assessment to be done. So we took a stand. If it is a fresh assessment, that means that old order is now void. You cannot make reference to an order that is void. If you want to make the same additions again, then you have to list out all the additions. And as if you are passing the order, the assessing officer should have done. But instead, he made reference to the old one. The old assessment order has no legs to stand on anymore. Therefore, straight away, all those additions are void. All those additions are void. Was this? I didn't even go into the merits. There were totally 12 additions, and I did not have to touch the merits. Purely on the basis of that technical point, I won the case. What does that have to do with the review unit? Now, the review unit is going to be another specialized team that are going to see if the assessment order drafted by the assessing officer has been done correctly or not. So he is going to review to see if there are any technical gaps over there. So in the example I gave, they would have seen that order and they would have said, excuse me, assessing officer, you cannot make a reference to the old order. It has no legs to stand upon. Please again redraft it, making each addition again independently as if you are making that addition. So all this review unit is going to empower the department in allowing them not to make all these small legal issues, mistakes that have bigger ramifications in appeals. Now next, let us view what is the assessment procedure. Now when I put this slide, it may seem a little shocking, it may seem very complex, but don't worry, I'll simplify it and explain it to you. Now this slide looks like there is so much going on inside it. When you look at it, it seems like, why are there so many lines going from here, there, X, Y, Z, like that? But don't worry, I have only summarized the entire assessment procedure into one chart so that it is there in an easily readable format. How is it easily readable? I will show you now. Now I request you to follow my cursor that you can see on the screen. Now, as you can see, in the center of everything, you have this very powerful body called the NEAC, or the National E-Assessment Center. So any communication that the assessee or the taxpayer has with the department will be only with this NEAC. Now, in the course of this explaining this, I will further explain some of the points we discussed further. But let's take a scenario. Let's take a live scenario. Now, is there going to be a case for your client? How is the procedure going to happen? First things first, the NEAC will serve a notice on the assessee. If you see point number 1, you can see that the NEAC will serve the notice on the assessee. The assessee here has an option to submit the response, and he will submit this response back to the NEAC only. Then what will the NEAC do? The NEAC has the power to assign the case to what assessment unit it wants. Remember, I told you there are 8 assessment units. So the NEAC will decide which case goes where. Either it will be on a random basis, or maybe on sensitive cases, it may be manually decided. So the NEAC allocates which assessment unit handles which case. So NEAC allots your case to a particular assessment unit. You don't know which assessment unit it has gone to. So now it is in the assessment unit, in the hands of the assessing officer. What does the assessing officer do? Let's assume he wants more information. He says, this is not adequate what the assessee has given me, I need more information. So he requests for more information. So if you see 4A, again the assessment unit will make the request to the NEAC only. The assessment unit will request the NEAC for more information. So the NEAC will send this back to the assessee saying, sir, please give me more information. The assessment unit wants more information, so please give me all this. And again, the assessee has to respond to the NEAC, which they will forward it back to the assessment unit. Now, assessment unit have got whatever they wanted, but they're looking through the documents. They are not satisfied with the truthfulness of it. So what they do, they feel it requires some cross-examination. Let's assume it is dealing with an agricultural land. So therefore, the Adangal, Chitta, or whatever it's called in the respective state, they'll have to verify those documents. Maybe they'll call the Tasildar, maybe they'll call whoever is the registrar for the agricultural land to verify the information, to cross-examine him. But can the assessment unit do this? We have to remember here, it is faceless. So here, the assessment unit will make a request for verification back to the NEAC. They will say, NEAC people, we want these documents to be verified. Can you please get it verified? The NEAC will then issue a request for verification to the verification unit, which is a completely different unit. It has nothing to do with the assessment unit. Therefore, only this verification unit will have any sort of face time with the assessee. No other unit has face time with the assessee other than the verification unit. Therefore, the verification unit, they will be in touch with the assessee. They will say, please come for cross examination, or please come submit these documents. You want to again scrutinize it in person to see if there's any forged documents. So once the verification unit gets their comfort on that, they will submit a report to the NEAC, and The NEAC will send that report to the assessment unit. What does the assessment unit do with it? Now they're equipped with the information, but it deals with some JDA related issue also. They are not aware how to handle JDA issues. So what do? They say we need technical inputs. So we are going to refer this case. We want request for technical assistant to the NEAC, and NEAC will assign a technical unit. They will say, a technical unit, we need some inputs on JDA. Please share in this specific case, what are your technical inputs? So a team of experts, people who are all knowledgeable in JDA matters or capital gain matters, there will be a specific team. For all India cases, they will be the technical unit on those matters. They will submit a report to the NEAC, which they will forward to the assessment unit. Finally, the assessment unit, they have requested for more information. They have got it from the assessee. They wanted verification and cross examination, which they have got from the verification unit. They wanted technical inputs, which they have got from the technical units. Finally, they are ready to pass the draft assessment order. Here is a new term that we are introduced to. This has nothing to do with the draft order in transfer pricing. So anyone who has transfer pricing knowledge, don't confuse that with this draft assessment order. This is something different. So here there is a term called draft assessment order. What is a draft assessment order? They'll prepare as if it is a final assessment order with some question marks, and they will share it to the NEAC. What will the NEAC do? They will again forward this to the review unit. Remember, I told you that example of the 263 case, fresh assessment. So that none of those mistakes happen, the review unit, they will again review whether the order is drafted correctly, whether all the legal points have been covered, whether assessment unit has made any mistake that needs to be corrected. So they will give suggestions, and these suggestions and modifications will come here from the review unit back to the NEAC, who will send it to the assessment unit. This process will continuously continue till finally the review unit says, yes, okay, it is correct. I agree with what assessment order is passed. They will share it to the NEAC. This does not straight away become the final order. What the NEAC will do here, they will send a show cause notice to the assessee with the draft order saying, this is the draft order. Do you have any further comments that you want to share? And as an assessee, you can go through that entire order and decide if you have any comments on them. What's interesting to note here is that earlier some additions were being made at the assessment stage even after the hearings, which were not discussed in your hearings at all. The assessing officer did not include any of that information in his show cause notice. Therefore, he did not give you an opportunity to be heard. Let's assume there's an issue of a penny stock, or there's an issue of any other issue which is happening there. So you're having the hearing on that specific issue. And at the end of the hearing, he passes the assessment order. Normally, they pass it closer to the deadline only. So when they pass the assessment order, you get the assessment order. You are shocked to find that there is one more addition other than what you discussed. Something that you did not have any hearings about. Show cause notice also did not cover that. Suddenly addition is made. What is the recourse that you have here? You cannot go for a 154 because it is not an error apparent on the record. It's only for arithmetic errors or errors apparent on record you can go for 154. What do you have to do? You have to straight away go on an appeal only in those cases. But under the e-assessment procedure, that entire opportunity for the assessing officer to suddenly add one point in the end when finalizing the order is gone, because the draft assessment order has to be shared with the assessee, and he will give his response to this show cause notice. Then only the final assessment order will be passed. So this is the broad procedure of e-assessment. So I'm sure now this entire table or this entire chart will become more clear to you. What is evident here is this NEAC in the middle. They are the most powerful body when it comes to e-assessment. Every action, be it on the department side or be it on the assessee side, always has to flow through the NEAC only. It cannot go through anybody else. Even if you know the assessing officer by whatever reason you come to know that that person is the assessing officer, you cannot talk to him. It has to flow through the NEAC only. So we have discussed in the course of the presentation what are the powers of the NEAC already. But once again, just for a revision purpose, let us understand. They have the power to send the notices. They have the power to assign and allocate cases, be it to the assessment unit or technical unit, verification unit, or even the review unit. They will review the draft assessment order and they will share the review to the review unit, and they have the power to provide the assessee an opportunity. Now, the last point is the most critical power: transfer to the assessing officer for post assessment work or during assessment also. So, therefore, the Act has carved out situations where sometimes they understand e assessment may not be possible. So, therefore, physical manual assessment has to be done again. So, the power is lies with the NEAC. Only the NEAC can decide this. Now, on this page, I've just put out a sample assessment notice. Now, some of you may be aware of it. Maybe your clients have already received national these e-assessment notices. Since October, the department have already started a pilot drive where more than 55,000 notices were issued across the country, and some people have received it, some people have not. But from 1st April onwards, the full-fledged assessment has started. But due to the lockdown scenario, maybe you have not received the assessment notice, or maybe you have not seen. But for those of you who are not aware what it looks like, this is how the e-assessment notice will look like. All the notices come from, as you can see in this red box over here, the National E-Assessment Center. So they are the authority that sent it. Earlier, you would have seen in all your manual assessment notices, you would have received it from the name of the officer, non-corporate ward 7-3, like that you would have got it, or corporate ward 2-3, like that you would have got from each person who is sending it to you. Henceforth, you don't know. You have only that big body that we saw on the previous slide in the middle, the NEAC. That's the only person that we interact with. Almost everything else is the same, like what we have seen before, except the final signing authority will again be the NEAC. It will not be an individual. It will not be an individual. So, what does your jurisdictional assessing officer do now? After great difficulty, they have passed the exams. They have passed the exams. They have come here and they have taken the job. It reminds me of a joke where somebody was telling me, we were discussing with some commissioners as to what is happening now. When will you finish work? How will you do the work? They said, I don't know what work we'll have. These three kids, they were discussing. One kid says, you know what? My father is the fastest in the world. Yes, how? When I take an arrow and I shoot it at the tree, before the arrow hits the tree, my father, he would have reached that tree. Then next boy says, that is not fast. My father, you know how fast he is. I take a gun, I shoot the tree. Before the bullet hits the tree, my father, he'll reach the tree. Third boy will say, this is nothing. My father is the fastest in the world. When office time closes at 5:30, he is already home by 2 o'clock. He says, how? He says he was only during this jurisdictional assessment before this assessing unit came. So therefore, he is now back home before the office time itself finishes. So questions are being asked, what does the assessing officer do? That was on a lighter note. But the role of the assessing officer has severely watered down. Of course, there might be a person in the assessment unit, but you need to know that person who was sitting in Udupi, that person who was sitting in Chennai and assessing that assessee, what does he do? What is his role? Will everybody be transferred to Delhi or those 8 units? Or will the current income tax still continue? So there will be transfers, but the people who are here, there have to still be people to administer the revenue. For that, some limited role is there for the jurisdictional officer. They will have to do the collection and recovery of your demand. If there's once the demand is fixed by that assessment unit or the NEAC, somebody has to collect it. So who will be doing that? Your jurisdictional assessing officer. So I'm sure you will be getting a lot of calls. Please pay, all that. The next is the rectification under section 154. For all purposes of rectification, they have not brought it into the fold of the e-assessment proceedings yet. It still remains a manual process. So if there is an error or apparent error on the face of the record or a patent error on the face of your assessment order, then in that case, your assessee may apply for a rectification under section 154. You can apply this to your jurisdictional assessing officer. The next point, assessing officers, now they'll give power to the appellate orders. This is a mere giving effect order. There's no discretion here. If I go and appeal to the ITAT and the ITAT says, yes, 7 additions are wrong, 1 addition is correct, you please rework the calculation based on that 1 addition. Then the assessing officer, all he has to do is, we have got an order from the ITAT, we remove these 7 additions, this 1 addition subsists, therefore the interest payable on the single addition is so much, this is the demand. So they will only give an effect. There's no discretionary power here. The only discretionary power that they have currently is a proposal to launch prosecution proceedings. It is a very powerful discretionary power that still exists with the assessing officer. While earlier, prosecution, even though it is possible in most cases, I'd say in 75% of the cases, even though there are demands raised, even though prosecution was never done, prosecution could have been done. The powers were there, and you would have satisfied the conditions to initiate prosecution proceedings. However, the department and the officials were kind enough not to do it. However, now the only power, if a person is left with the power to launch only prosecution proceedings, whether he will use that power or he will correctly administer whatever is there in the act, questions come up. My view is, if this remains, then maybe we will see a rise in the number of prosecution proceedings, because this is the only discretionary power with an assessing officer. Now, the Act again and this entire e assessment scheme, they have carved out certain situations in which a personal appearance can take place. So, in the following conditions, personal appearances can happen. For example, where books of accounts have to be examined, or when survey provisions are related there, or examination or cross examination of witness is required, or where the assessee specifically requests for a personal hearing. Therefore, the assessee has an option to request for a personal hearing. You have to naturally give a reason also. Only if the NEAC is satisfied with your reason requesting for a personal hearing will they grant you a personal hearing. But again, in all of these points, what you should remember is that whoever you're facing in personal appearance, they will not be the assessing officer. They will be only a verification unit officer. So they will verify these details. Maybe they will be based in your own city to avoid additional travel cost. So they will review whatever documents you submit and they'll prepare a report and give it to the NEAC. That's all. They do not have any control whatsoever in what is the final outcome of the assessment order. So therefore, he will not be able to tell you that if this is done, yes, I accept your submissions, definitely you will win the case. He cannot say that. All he can say is, I accept your submission, and he can give a report to the NEAC saying, what the assessee told me appears to be correct. Please forward this to the assessment unit. The wisdom of the assessment unit still prevails over the verification unit. So therefore, it is like a unit that you are conveying information to. They are collecting the information. There is no big discussion happening at this stage. So people have asked me, do I have the option to opt out of the scheme? No longer do you have the option to opt out of the scheme. Unlike the email assessment, where if you click that e-proceeding tab, you can select, do you want to continue on the e-platform or do you want a manual? You can choose yes or no. In this, you don't have any option to choose yes or no. It is applicable to everybody. It is applicable to everybody. There are only a few cases where e-assessment is not required that I have listed out here on this page. These are the exceptions to the e-assessment. Where assessment is framed under section 153A or 153C. In such cases, they will not come under the e-assessment scheme for now. I repeatedly keep saying for now because earlier I used to say this the same slide when I used to present it. I used to say 153A, 153C, and 144 were not covered. But in this Finance Act 2020, 144 cases, that is best judgment assessment cases, also they were asked to be brought in the e-assessment scheme. You may think best judgment means you have not submitted any information. What is the difference between having it physically or not? They basically earlier wanted to give the assessee an opportunity to come and submit the documents personally so that at least assessment can happen. However, in the wisdom of the department and in the wisdom of the Honorable Finance Minister, they decided that 144 cases also, any show cause notice, any communication has to come through the NEAC. It will not be transferred to a local assessing officer. So therefore, 153A, 153C, search cases, 147, any reopening cases. This will also be initiated only by your local officers. It will not be done under the e-assessment scheme for now. Why, you may ask? Really, I don't have an answer to that. Because as the e-assessment scheme is structured, they might as well have included 147 cases also on that. But maybe they wanted to draw a discretion of the powers of the joint commissioner or the principal commissioner, whoever is the approving authority for the 148 notices for that, and to satisfy the reasons. You know that 140 here, 148 has certain conditions attached to it. You can reopen only beyond 4 to 6 years when the income that is escaping assessment is 1 lakh or more. You have to get the requisite approvals from the joint commissioner or principal commissioner wherever applicable. Similarly, if you have any foreign assets, they can reopen up to 16 years also. Each of these have certain conditions that need to be satisfied, plus certain approvals that need to be satisfied. Maybe that is why they decided not to bring it into the e-assessment scheme. This could change very quickly. In 6 months or 12 months, we may see that 147 cases is also brought under the e-assessment schemes, where the assessment has been set aside by the appellate authorities. This brings me to a very important point also, where in e-assessment, now that it's become a full-fledged facility, I expect there may be a lot more adverse orders. Why? When face to face itself, I was finding it difficult to convince the assessing officer. When I don't know that person, when he's sitting in Delhi, when he's sitting in UP, and I am not able to relate the information to him, then definitely cases are going to be declared against the assessee. I'll give you a simple example. You have a hearing with the CIT appeals. For example, before the lockdown, I had a hearing with the CIT appeals and I went and appeared before that officer. Unfortunately, on that day, the officer is not available. So what happened? He is in some other meeting. I told his secretary, I will come tomorrow. You please tell sir that I will come tomorrow. So tomorrow I went, and the next day I went and I met the officer, I met the commissioner. We heard the case, and he passed the order subsequently after that. Now, here, I did not have to formally file an adjournment. I did not have to formally discuss that I am coming on another date, etc. But when it comes to e assessment, you have a date. It's a hard stop date. So, therefore, if I'm given 10 days to submit my response, no matter what the reason is, I cannot submit it on the 11th day. It is unlikely it will be accepted. Unlike a face-to-face hearing, you cannot go and request, you please wait, or you cannot call and say, sir, I am a little tied up today, or there's a death in my family, I will come tomorrow. You cannot no longer do that. You must, by no choice, finish submitting your documents by that date. If you don't, then there are high chances of the order going against you. And that is why I say appeals is suddenly going to become very important when it comes to income tax. There will be a spike in the adverse orders. There will also be a spike in the number of penalties. What do I mean? The income tax are now taking it very seriously. When an assessee consciously does not reply to a notice, if you don't have a sufficient reason to not respond to a notice, then now the income tax is empowered with levying a penalty of rupees 10,000. Up to 10,000, they can levy a penalty for dodging notices or not responding to notices on time. And in the e-assessment scheme, when you have a hard stop 10 days or 15 days, If you don't respond in that time, maybe that assessing officer or that assessment unit, they will decide that they have to levy penalty in your case. So the number of appeals that's going to happen is definitely going to go up because of these points. And earlier, maybe you told the assessee not required, don't go on appeal. Better you buy peace. You don't go on appeal. You just pay the amount. Now I am highly advising everybody, if there's an adverse order where you have a case or where you may have even a legal point, definitely go on appeal, because the likelihood of you winning an appeal and getting the case in your favor is higher, is definitely higher. The next situation or circumstance where e-assessment will not be required is where the internet connectivity is poor and it has been notified by the DGIT or the equivalent principal CCIT or CCIT. In these cases, they may write a letter to the NESC or to the concerned CBDT personnel stating that in this area the internet is very very bad, so please allow them to have physical appearances. For example, Jammu and Kashmir, for almost 4 months they did not have any internet in the earlier this year. So if that auditor there had to do a e-assessment case, it would have been impossible for him to do it because he does not have internet. How is he going to sit and do a e-assessment? So physical assessments were allowed in those cases. So those are examples where the DGIT may decide. Now, because of the lockdown or because certain telecom companies may go out of business, then in that case, certain areas will lose their connectivity. Then the DGIT can make a request saying that in these cases, you allow them to come and do the cases physically also. No need e-assessment in these cases. Also, another exceptional circumstances where the assessee has no PAN or where there is no e-registration, they have not even registered online. But let's assume in demonetization cases, we saw a lot of people receiving notices without registration. They only had bank account, but suddenly they used to get notices from the department saying so much addition is being made or order is already passed. Order has already been passed against you. This is your demand. So when this came to light only, they knew that some issue is there at all. So in demonetization cases, this happened. So in these certain circumstances, they may decide physical appearances is satisfactory. There's no need for e-assessment. So these are the very few exceptions to e-assessment. But as you can see, these will also likelihood. The likelihood is that maybe in the future they will also be brought under the fold of e-assessment. This brings me to the very important point of what should you and I do for e-assessment proceedings. How can you and I be geared up to be effective in this e-assessment scenario? The first point, the most important point that I have to tell all auditors, please request to your client to update the contact information and email ID of theirs on that income tax portal. Now, earlier, you're all aware that it was unlimited. The number of contact IDs and email IDs that you could register to one number or one email ID was unlimited. So many auditors, much like my office also, what we used to do was if the client consented to it, you would give your office ID as the secondary ID or the first primary ID so that any communication, intimation, notice, or even a refund is being issued, anything will come to the auditor or it will come to the authorized representative. Then they brought a restriction. Maximum only 5 PAN numbers can be registered to one ID or one phone number. They increased it to 10, but it's still only a small number. What happened is many people, they did not update after that the contact number and email ID of the client. So we took it up very seriously. More than I think 1,400 clients of people we had to contact, request them to change their contact number, change their email IDs. We had to ask them, please ensure that you are updating it to the latest one. Whatever you are using personally, ensure that that is being done, so that then only they will directly get the communication. Because if the communication does not receive to them, then for the income tax purposes, as long as they have uploaded it on the website, it has been communicated to the assessee. So even if the assessee has not received it formally, if it has been uploaded, then it has been communicated. The income tax later they will say, whatever email ID you had or whatever contact number you have given, we have sent it to that. It is your fault that you have not updated it. Who asked you to give your auditor's number? Who asked you to give your old Aircel number? That company has gone out of business. Why didn't you change it? Who asked you to give a wrong email ID? You should have changed your email ID. So these are circumstances which I'm already seeing. In many cases, this is what is happening, and the income tax is legally correct. They have a stance. Maybe we can go all the way to ITAT and get the matter set aside. But it remains that your assessee will have to bear the appeal cost. He'll have to bear whatever fees of the auditor or the lawyer whoever is representing him. All this because of a simple mistake. He gave the wrong phone number or the wrong email ID. So ensure repeatedly, I'm saying, and I used to say this even when I went to all the branches, tell them to update their contact number and their email ID, or at least one ID where they ensure that they are in touch with the communication that they are receiving. The next point, it might seem like a joke, but it's the truth. Please get good scanning equipment for your office. Because earlier, you could imagine where I had hundreds of documents I used to go and submit for scrutiny case. In scrutiny, I used to get 40, 50 points, and most auditors are aware of this. You will have to sit and bind three sets, four sets of documents, and you'll have to go and submit it to the assessing officer in the tapal section or directly to the assessing officer. Now that all of that is gone, you have to sit and scan the equipment, you have to scan all the documents. So all the 500 pages that you were giving physically, now you have to try and scan it and send it by email, or you have to scan it and upload it onto that portal. So these are certain restrictions and challenges. Remember, I told there are many benefits of the e-assessment scheme, but there are certain challenges also in the e-assessment scheme. This scanning challenge is a genuinely difficult challenge. It becomes a tedious task, but this is here to stay. We have to do it. So what you can do is prepare, get good scanning equipment. Today, there are good softwares on your phone itself where you can scan documents using your phone. Try and get those softwares so that you can scan the documents quickly and upload them. Third, ensure all clients inform you immediately on receipt of any notice or communication. As I told you, e-assessment has a hard and stop date, 15 days, 10 days, whatever they specify. It will not be open beyond that time. Unlike your face-to-face basis where you could go 2 days later, 3 days later, you can't do that when it's online, and penalties can also be levied. So make it very abundantly clear to all your clients that if they receive any communication from the income tax, they have to immediately intimate you as the assessee to be aware of the case. Please prepare and submit prompt reply to the notices. This goes without saying. I'm sure all of you will do that also. And take up appeals seriously. I already touched upon this. You must take up appeals very, very seriously. As you jokingly said earlier, when you used to go for a hearing, a good lawyer, what he is doing is, if he knows the facts, you have to bang on the facts. If you know the law, you have to bang on the law. If you don't know anything, then bang on the table, you will win the case. So now no longer is there going to be a table. If you bang on any table, it will be in your house or in your office only, it will get damaged. So you cannot take that chance anymore. You have to prepare in a very, very robust manner your entire case, and you must present the case in the course of your assessment proceedings in a documented format. So ensure it is done correctly and be ready. If there's any adverse order, definitely take it up on appeal. Definitely take it on appeal. Even though I have said thank you here, I'll quickly touch upon what is called the e-appeal. You're all aware that in this Finance Act 2020, the Honorable Finance Minister has announced e-appeal. That means your appeal at the CIT appeals level, at the CIT appeals level, will not be physical anymore. It will be through an online platform. Now, there are a lot of issues with this. Some of us feel that you lose the benefit of a true appeal. Today, with the e assessment scheme, the reason you are going on appeal itself is because it is faceless. They have missed out genuine points that they should have considered. But because of this e assessment scheme, maybe one document I scanned and I uploaded, there was no clarity in the document. He did not ask me to send the document again. He just accepted it, and he passed an adverse order saying he has not given the document. Now, I did not even know that it was not clear. You may say that at a later date. You go to a appeal to the CIT appeals. What he will do? Normally, he will issue a remand letter or a remand notice. he'll get the information. The assessing officer, he'll look at the document now that it is clear. You would have given a clear copy. He'll give his comments. But when the assessment, it is a online appeal. If again whatever you scanned is blurred or it is not clear, and the appellate authority also says it is not clear, he passes an adverse order. Then what is the purpose of going on appeal? So the appeal has to be. There was a feeling that the appeal has to be truly heard. If you want a true appeal, it has to be face to face. You should be allowed to present your arguments. But as it stands, we still don't know how the e-appeal proceedings will be. There are no procedures yet to be codified. It may be a Skype discussion or a Zoom call discussion, like what we are doing webinars today. Like that, it could be a Zoom session where you have an opportunity to present your case, but you just don't go physically, and everything will likely be recorded. Now, that is something that I can see happening, but what we have to do is we have to be ready that e-appeal is going to happen. Similarly, e-penalty also, they are saying penalty cases. While earlier there was some sort of discretion to the assessing officer, they want to say penalty will also be moved to the e-assessment platform. So that is also looking like to be a very, very likely scenario. We have to wait and see how the codified procedures are. But I'm sure, given the entire structure of this, some auditors may be worried that, oh no, how are we going to do it anymore? But I'm sure it will usher in only a good future for us. Except we must remember we have to be now very technically sound and ensure that whatever arguments that we have, we are correctly drafting it and submitting it on time. And I'm sure if we do that, we'll definitely win more cases and definitely take up more appeal, so that you have more opportunities not only to do more services but also to win the cases. With this, I thank the Udupi branch for giving me the opportunity to address on this e-assessment topic, and I thank all the listeners for joining in. And if anybody wants a copy of today's presentation, please feel free to send me an email, or you can even WhatsApp me. My mobile number on the screen is my WhatsApp number, so you can feel free to send me a WhatsApp message. I'll be more than happy to share the PPT with you. And with this, over to the MC members and chairman of the ODP branch. Thank you very much.
Abhishek, we have received few questions.
Pradeep, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? We have received a few questions. Let me put.
You're not audible, Pradeep. Still.
Hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear you.
Okay, I will put some questions in the.
So maybe till Pradeep, you fix your connection, I'll just take a few queries that are there in the comments till they come.
Yeah, I put some.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
First question, what is it? 3.27.
Which authority can levy penalty for non-compliance of notice? What about best judgment assessment? Yeah, I think Anant Narayanan sir has asked the right question, but as I touched upon it at the end of my program, best judgment assessment, they had initially kept it, still it would be physical is what they said, but we have noticed that in this latest Finance Act, they have said any show cause notice that is issued by the authorities under best judgment assessment should also be done only through the e-assessment portal. Which authority can levy penalty for non-compliance? The recommendation for non-compliance will be given by the assessment unit or by the NEAC. They will give the recommendation to the jurisdictional assessing officer who will levy the penalty. But of course, as I said, the current Finance Act, they've announced that there will be a e-penalty. Even though they have not codified how it will happen, they have said it will be a e-penalty. We have to wait and see how it affects us. Assessee's details is tagged with the draft order only at NEAC, or review unit will also have access to the assessee details. This is a good question. Actually, what is interesting is even though technically it is said that nobody knows anybody, they'll just be given the information and they'll have to process it. The reality of what is happening is that uh, you take your income tax return. If you're an assessing officer, or even if it's a review unit or if it's a technical unit, whatever unit it is, one fundamental thing that you want to see is the income tax return that is filed by the assessee. All of us file income tax returns on a daily basis, on a regular basis. We are aware. The first page of the income tax return, what does it ask for? Name of the assessee, PAN number of the assessee, address of the assessee, mobile number of the assessee, email ID of the assessee. So all the communication details are available in the very first page of the income tax return. So who you are is very much available with all the assessing officers currently. Maybe the income tax will take a stance, maybe they will take a stance to say that all of these details will be redacted when it is sent to each unit. So they will not know anything other than PAN number of the assessee. They will not be able to see the phone number, they will not be able to see the email. So currently assessee details is available with them. They are not supposed to reach out even if the details are available. Technically the assessing officer or the review unit, whatever unit you're talking about, they are not supposed to call the assessee at all. Any communications has to come only through the NEAC, but the details are available currently. Next question is, we can take, in the case where the information called for is voluminous, whether the SSE can opt to submit. This is a very good question. So this is again a very practical session question, and we are yet to receive some clarity on that. I'm sure that they will give an option for you to submit it. I expect there will be, like how we have the e-Sahayata centers that is there in each region. I'm sure there will be like scanning centers that the income tax will establish, where if the detail is voluminous, you can go there and you maybe pay a small sum of money to them. They will scan the documents and they will upload it for you so that you can upload it over there itself onto the e-assessment portal. That seems to be the best solution for this practical impediment that people may face. With all the merits in proceedings, certain issues are better demonstrated, rebutted in person. How is this possible? 100%, Basavaraj sir. I agree with you completely. Where I do think strongly, I am also of the belief that certain details can only be communicated on a face to face basis. You take information technology companies, IT companies, they have very complex agreements. They have a master service agreement, then they have an individual agreement for each job they perform, and each of this is related to each other. And every time it keeps changing, there are certain amendments, addendums, all are there, and it is so complex sometimes that it is almost close to impossible for me to type it out. How am I supposed to type out and explain that each agreement is this? If it is physical, I'll show the agreement and I will explain to the officer, this is what this is, in this page, this is what it is. But when it comes to typing it out, definitely there is going to be a challenge over there. And that is why I am telling you that very likelihood that there could be adverse orders, because we are hoping that the assessing officer, whoever it is, wherever he is sitting, he will understand that this is difficult. You cannot communicate it easily by way of simply typing it onto a portal. There is going to be that difficulty. Maybe they will understand, but assuming that they don't understand, will they give you time, or will they be in a rush to pass the assessment order? We still don't know. We still don't know the practical side of it. But I do expect there will be adverse orders because of this. That's why I'm saying, while earlier, especially in small towns and smaller cities, there was assessees they were not encouraged to go on appeal. They were told, better you finish it at the assessing officer level, you pay the tax, you buy the piece, you continue business. But now I feel if you miss the opportunity to go on appeal, your assessee will end up paying a very high demand. What about assessments pending as on 31/3/2020? Will they also be transferred to NEAC? I think as of now, the government said that whatever notices are issued afresh, only those cases will come under the e-assessment scheme. So if there's any hearing already going on, it is already continuous, that will continue to be under the old scheme. Only where a new notice is issued from the NEAC will it come under the e-assessment scheme. We have received a notice and replied within 50 days. Afterwards, nothing happened. What is the remedy? So even there are a couple of cases where we are waiting on some situation like this, where we have responded, but we have not got a response. This 15 days time is a limitation for assessee. It is not for the department, it appears. So department can still take whatever time they want. So that has not changed in the e-assessment scheme. But maybe we will expect going forward, they will give us some clarity on that. We must wait and see, sir. If certain issues are remanded with specific directions by appellate authority, who will be the AO? Yes, as I said, when there is a set aside matter by appellate authority, now CIT cannot set aside, but ITAT has the power to set aside. So ITAT or High Court or Supreme Court, if they set aside the matter to the assessing officer, then a jurisdictional physical assessing officer may examine the case. Now, why I am saying may is because we have to find out the reason why they set aside. If the reason they set aside is saying no opportunity was given to the assessee or it has not been heard properly, or let us take that IT company example itself I gave a few minutes back. So they said it is too complex, the agreements. It is not possible for the assessee to present his case successfully when it is through an online platform, allow it to be physically done. Then in that case, it may come to the jurisdictional officer. But there may also be cases where they say the assessee has submitted, but you have missed it, re-examine it. So it may go back to the assessment unit only. As it stands, they have said set aside cases, it will come to the physical officer. Maybe they will refine the definition further going forward. Poses such technology risk, not the risk of not delivered. What is the remedy? Um, I don't understand. I'm assuming you are saying, sir, suppose we are not able to upload or we are unable to submit the documents for whatever reason, what is the remedy? Then maybe, see, you can either upload the document or you can write a statement to the NEAC saying that we have not been given an opportunity to submit the documents or it is too voluminous for me to submit. In this case, I request more time or allow me to submit it by going to a company, going to the income tax office. Maybe there they will physically scan it and they'll upload it. So that's the only solutions that we can have for that issue. I have a doubt which I'm posting here. You have stated that books of accounts may be produced to verification master who may be in the same jurisdictional area also. Yes, correct. Yes, sir. The verification unit may be in the same place. At the end of verification, do we know what are the findings of the verification? Do we get a copy? I'm sure they will share their report to you. Maybe I'm going again. I have not yet come to a stage where the verification officer has submitted the report in any of the cases that I'm handling. But by going by natural principles of justice and the legal principles, any report that they are preparing, they should make it available to you where you have submitted certain information. Because I can say that this is all the details I'm giving. If that gentleman he drafts it saying assessee has not said any of this, then I should be given an opportunity to rebut it. Of course, as far as e-assessment is concerned, you are getting that opportunity at the end. When finally they are giving you that draft assessment order, you can always write to them saying in the show cause notice that they are serving, you can always state that this is not what I submitted to the verification unit, this is incorrect. So you will have the option to give that. The details cause of, I think we already discussed this, sir. Yes, we can ask for time. I think still the disposal of that is left to the that assessment unit. Can ASCII file an adjournment letter with specific reasons before the due date? Yes, absolutely, sir. You can file a assessment. Sorry, you can file an adjournment before the during the course of the e-assessment. And if you can give the proof of the adjournment also, it will be even better. They cannot be obtuse. If they give 15 days for whatever genuine reason, assessee may not be able to submit. You may be abroad and you don't have access to your files. You can ask for time, so there's no restriction. Can we submit additional information without being asked? Yes, you can upload whatever documents you want under the e-assessment scheme. There will be a drop down box. First you can select bank statement, you can select your income computation, whatever documents you want you can select in the drop down box, browse and upload it. There will be one option in the drop down called others, so whatever you want you can upload it there also. To which email ID will the notice of assessment, sorry, that question went off, disappeared. To which email ID will the notice of assessment be sent? If the email bounces back, what is the procedure for the department to resend the assessment notice? So, Sridhar sir, here I want to make it clear, whatever email ID you have given on that email platform, the e-assessment platform, or on the income tax portal, that is considered to be the correct email ID. You may have made a spelling mistake. For example, my spelling is Abhishek, Abhishek Murali, and Abhi. Suppose my staff or somebody types Abishek instead of Abhi. It is presumed to be correct. Even if the email bounces back or it goes to some other Abhishek, the income tax does not care. They say that whatever you have put on the website, I am accepting. So that's why I said very clearly, advise all your clients that their email ID and their mobile number, it should be correct. It should be correct. Whatever they see regularly, please give that email ID, please give that mobile number. Because some clients may be illiterate, they don't have email IDs. This is a very practical situation that many auditors face, where they may have clients who don't know how to use an email, etc. Their business does not require it, they don't do it also. But mobile phone is a basic communication. Request them to give at least mobile number correctly, and if possible you request them to have an email ID. Is it not better to have a draft order as observed by Madras High Court in the... Yes, sir, I agree. In Salem Srivilas Ramvilas Chit case, they said the draft order it is better to have it. Uh, but I think in the current scheme, given that you are having multiple faceless authorities, you have to simply look at the draft assessment order. Otherwise, it is not practical for you to not respond. If in that case your entire assessment goes to waste. How to produce sale bills, purchase bills, books of accounts which are voluminous in size. I agree, sir. Very practical issue. As I'm repeatedly saying, uh, in some cases, I've seen auditors, they bring a huge bag of the documents that need to be submitted for scrutiny. How are you going to scan and upload all this? I don't know. Maybe it will only be a limited scrutiny finally, because earlier we have all experienced this, where it starts off as limited scrutiny, but you end up giving as if it is a full blown scrutiny. You give documents and the examination is also done. Maybe under the e-assessment scheme, finally we will see actual limited scrutiny. The appeals era, can we also expect CIT appeals to dispose of the appeals within the time limit mentioned in section 250? Yes, Sridhar sir, I hope so. As you are aware, the time limit specified under the Act for the appellate authorities, they are not binding. They are only advisory, saying that you have to finish it at least by 4 years or at least by 12 months, all that. But it is not binding on them. But naturally, I do think they will try to finish it. You may be aware already, the CIT appeals are given heavy targets, and they are motivated. Currently itself, they are motivated to dispose of the cases. So very rarely you find the CIT appeal cases that are pending for a very long time. I think the incidences of that has reduced substantially. Maybe in your case, you might have faced certain instances, but I'm sure in the e-appeals era, this will go down because it will be easy for it to be monitored by their superiors also. Yes, yeah, Abhishek. Even small proprietors' assessments are done by e-assessment. Yes, Srinivas Rao sir, it's going to be a blanket case where all assessees, it is going to be done through e-assessment. They are not trying to make any carve out other than the ones that I discussed, like search cases, etc. What is the time limit normally to get an assessment order? Earlier, you knew that the order was passed, but you never used to get the assessment order. But today, if you actually see how the current scheme, this email assessment itself, what is happening is they upload the assessment order on the website immediately. So, but I have been getting a lot of information also from many assessees and many auditors, where they are saying that for many assessees, the order is uploaded, but no email comes, no message communication also comes to the assessee. So they are not even aware that the order has come till finally the bank freezes their account or something. And I have taken it up with the authorities. We have written letters, we have submitted to them. So we are hoping that we will get clarity on this. But technically speaking, the time limit means there's no time limit. As soon as the hearing is finished or in that outer due date, before which they have to pass the assessment order. Otherwise, it becomes defunct or becomes void. By that date, they have to upload it. Can you please tell us any specific guidelines on how do we draft replies to income tax queries? I'll be happy to share this with you, sir. Maybe you can leave me a message or you can send me an email. I will share it with you. But I think maybe it may be too long to discuss at the moment. Received notice through e-assessment, replied with attachments and acknowledgements received. EO said not able to view, gave manual copy with acknowledgement. E-assessment is lost. Correct, Raja sir, if that's what has happened, then the entire purpose of the e-assessment is definitely lost. But we must all be appreciative of the fact that this is now only starting. It's a very early stages. So definitely there will be teething issues, be it from our side or the department side. And I can tell you very confidently, as far as the appellate authorities are concerned, especially the income tax appellate tribunal, the judges are very, very practical. They are very, very practical. They're willing to accept that if there is a practical issue like this, where I'm trying to submit a manual document, they are not accepting, or e-assessment they have completed without taking all the documents, they will set aside the matter. They will send it back to the assessing officer to be re-examined. So appellate authorities are very practical. So even if you have a scenario where you're submitting manually or they have not accepted, saying you have given manually, you have defeated the purpose of e-assessment, by appellate authorities you will get a favorable decision. But there will be teething issues. Hopefully it get resolved soon. Merely gives an opportunity as by way of draft order. Will opportunity be given under 154? I don't understand the question. Merely gives an assessee to the assessed by way of a draft order with opportunity. 154 cases is for rectification apparent on record. Once the order is passed, if you think there is an error that is apparent on record, then you may make an application. As I said, for 154 cases currently they don't come under the e-assessment scheme. So you may make an application to your jurisdictional officer itself. Dear sir, if small clients are having manual book of accounts in local language, how can we submit? Exactly, sir. I think it's an excellent question by Jansi Rani ma'am. And this is again one of the practical issues with e-assessment. A person sitting in Tamil Nadu is not going to understand if he does not know Hindi and he knows Tamil and English only. If the documents are going to be in Hindi, then it's impossible for him to understand that. And the vice versa also holds good. So this is a practical issue. How are they going to resolve it? Maybe they'll send it back to the verification unit to give their views on this point. Will this e-assessment apply to trust also? Because 12-year is yes, it will apply to. This is only for the assessment. This has nothing to do with. They will not see whether the 12-year registration is valid or not. At least that is my view. Currently, they will not do it. You are aware that again they have notified saying that where you have a trust or where you have any educational institution, etc., you have to get your approvals again. They've made it an online process, so you have to get the approvals again. So I think they are trying to say that that is a separate process. Your assessment is a separate process. Once that is granted, unless there is a patent or very obvious error or very obvious lie where falsification is there, they may not examine whether the registration itself is correct or not in an assessment. Please let me know if unable to attend hearing on second time also. What will happen after that? We can apply for an adjournment, sir, but whether they will actually accept the adjournment 2 times, 3 times, we don't know. In a practical face-to-face hearing, sometimes you may take 7 or 8 hearings also. I'm sure many of us have done that, where we have taken several adjournments, but still they've heard the case. I'm sure those number of opportunities will reduce now. They'll expect you to submit it before that due date. Is there any place where we can trace the present position of assessment or whether our reply has reached the officer or not? We get an acknowledgement once we submit our submission. So that is the proof that it has been submitted. So our proof that we have given it has come in the form of an acknowledgement number or whatever. Whether we can trace the present position, I don't think like how we have our courier tracking and all. We can't see whether that person has seen it or not. All we know is that they have asked if we have submitted. That's all we'll be aware. Abhishek sir, what will be the time limit to complete the e-assessment proceedings? Shashidharan sir, as I already said before, whatever is the regular time for completion of assessment, they have retained that. That hasn't been changed. So I think now it says 12 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. So I think that time is still retaining. Any knowledge that due to COVID have they extended the 15 days? Yes, yes. This is a blanket extension for any hearing, be it at assessment stage, appeal stage, or whatever. It will be given extension without any questions asked. Sir, please also take a webinar on how to prepare document submissions for appeals to CIT. I actually did a program on appeals slightly before. Maybe you could see that, Devesh. But if any more specific questions that you may have, you may feel free to address it to me personally.
Just hold on.
I think we've completed almost all the questions. There's just one more. Is it necessary to submit the power of attorney by Prabhakar Latkan? Yes, sir. It is absolutely required to submit the power of attorney. They are expecting that now. So you have to upload that. You have an option where they are asking, who are you? What is the nature of how you are appearing? So if you're a chartered accountant, you have to give a power of attorney. If you're an advocate, you have to give a wakalat, or if you are the assessee himself, you can say self. While replying to questions, company may use letterhead for covering letter. Muthukumaran sir, there's no problem. I think they can still go ahead and use the letterhead. In fact, many chartered accountants and advocates use their letterheads and they're giving written submissions also. ASSI gets penalty notice under 271C of the IT Act before 31st. An order was not uploaded on the date. Website was blank up to 8/1/2020. This seems to be a case that you can take up on the appeal, sir. You may get a favorable order in the course of the appeal by saying that the order was not given to you by the outside due date. So therefore, it is void because it has been time barred. So I think we have covered all the questions. That's great. Thank you so much to all the listeners, and thank you once again, Udupi branch. Over to the chairman.
Thank you, Abhishek, for the wonderful presentations and also answering all the questions of the
We are not
members.
able to hear you, Pradeep.
There is some
Mute.
technical problem. You are not getting
That's
actually.
okay.
Uh, I now request the past chairman of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI, CA Ganesh B. Kanchan, uh, for a closing remark. So there is some technical problem. Okay.
You're not here. We can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, there is some technical problem. Okay. I now request the secretary of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI to give a the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Abhishek Murali, sir, for this wonderful session. On behalf of Udupi branch of SIRC of ICI, I render my personal thanks for this wonderful session. Definitely, I believe this session has put a lot of value addition to all the viewers of the webinar. Definitely, it has put a lot of value addition. Thank you so much. And I also thank personally our chairman, C. Prajit Jogi, sir, for arranging this first ever webinar. I know he has taken a lot of efforts to making this webinar successful. Thank you so much, sir. And I also thank all our managing committee members for arranging this webinar. Once again, I also thank Ganesh B. Kanchan, sir, for supporting and making this webinar very successful. Thank you so much, one and all. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Over to chairman, sir.
Thank you all. I have to mention my team of webcast, the broadcast team, for all the arrangement. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.